thank you for joining us today for this historic announcement for the Army. We'll have some opening comments from Colonel Scott Medore, PM Soldier Lethality, in regards to the award of this contract. Those comments will be followed by opening statements by our panel. Brigadier General Larry Burris, Soldier Lethality Cross-Functional Team Director, followed by Brigadier General William Boroff, Joint Program Executive Officer, Armaments and Ammunition, to be followed by Colonel Scott Medore, PM Soldier Lethality. Upon completion of the opening statements, we'll then take questions. We'll ask that you ask one question and a follow-up, and if we have the opportunity to come back, we'll do that as well. We have about 50 minutes for this media roundtable, so we'll go ahead and begin. Colonel Medore, with your opening comments.
Thank you, David. Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Colonel Scott Medore, the project manager for Soldier Lethality. As most of you may already know, yesterday evening the Army awarded the Next Generation Squad Weapon production contract to Sig Sauer for the production of the Next Generation Squad Weapon rifles, automatic rifles, and ammunition. This down select and production contract award is the culmination of over 2 years of intensive soldier and technical testing. The contract is a 10-year, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity production contract with the first delivery order for $20.4 million. With that, I'll turn it over to General Burris for his opening comments.
Well, good morning. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for your time today. I greatly appreciate what you do to ensure your audiences know what we're doing at the Soldier Lethality Cross-Functional Team and our partner program executive offices, PEO Soldier and JPEO A&A, and understand why we do it. What we're doing is facilitating the rapid fielding of increased capabilities to enhance the ability of the soldier and squad to fight, win, and survive on the modern battlefield. We do this effectively at the CFT level by focusing on requirements and working with our partners to pursue capabilities that enhance and increase the lethality, mobility, protection, and situational awareness of the close combat force. And we're doing that for the purpose of achieving a clear, decisive, and sustainable overmatch against our near-peer adversaries. Let me focus on that statement for just a moment. For a time early on after the establishment of Army Futures Command and the CFTs, we talked about near-peer adversaries frequently. That was the phrase we used, and it became a talking point, and talking points eventually become stale if we're not careful. We probably haven't discussed that phrase in a while. But today, as we share with you that we've reached a major milestone in the pursuit of the next generation combat weapons that will give our close combat forces the capabilities they need to fill the gaps identified in the Small Arms Ammunition Configuration Study of 2017, I want to emphasize that the goal remains the same. We are here to establish and maintain overmatch against near-peer adversaries, and that is more urgent and relevant today than any time in recent history. The 2017 SAC study validated a standing requirement for increased energy at the target and identified the need to reduce shooter error through advanced fire control capabilities. The Next Generation program began in 2018 to meet that need and counter and defeat emerging protected and unprotected threats. As the director of the cross-functional team and the commandant of the U.S. Army Infantry School, I am committed to that mission. We are one giant step closer to achieving overmatch against global adversaries and threats that emerge on the battlefields of today and tomorrow. We are simply pausing here to acknowledge that we've arrived at a milestone in this process with the award of a vendor contract. We should note that this is the first time in our lifetime, the first time in 65 years the Army will field a new weapon system of this nature, a rifle, an automatic rifle, a fire control system, and a new caliber family of ammunition. This is revolutionary, and we arrived at this point in record time because we leveraged middle tier of acquisition rapid fielding authorities to enable speed and flexibility in defining requirements. Working with our partners in tandem in a process that would have traditionally been linear and may have taken 8 to 10 years to complete. And we arrived at this point in roughly 27 months, and that's simply remarkable. It is necessary for us to develop capabilities at the speed of war. Necessity drives invention. In this case, necessity drives innovation. And the role of the Soldier CFT in this modernization enterprise is to develop capability documents informed by user experiments, assessments, and technical demonstrations, and then rapidly transition these approved requirements to our partners in the Army acquisition enterprise. We recently demonstrated the success of this process as we recently transitioned Enhanced Night Vision Goggle Binocular to the Maneuver Capabilities Development Integration Directorate at Fort Benning. And I use that example so you and your audiences can appreciate what this part of the process looks like from the start to finish. It is a new way of doing business, and it is not without challenges, but it is proving to be efficient and economical. To get to this point, and in order to ensure soldier acceptance, the NGSW team conducted 18 soldier touch points and more than 100 technical subtests. More than 500 soldiers, Marines, and Special Operations soldiers contributed to 20,000 hours of user feedback. This is a process driven by data and shaped by the user, the close combat force soldier, who will ultimately benefit on the battlefield. The soldier's never seen this full suite of capabilities in one integrated system. We committed to kitting the soldier and the squad as an integrated combat platform in order to introduce and enhance capabilities holistically. And we are committed to creating an architecture that facilitates technology growth and capability integration across those platforms. That is what we're getting after with this system. Having advanced capabilities in one integrated system will enhance soldier lethality and ensure we maintain overmatch. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to today's questions. And now I'll hand it off to Brigadier General Bill Boroff.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brigadier General Bill Boroff. I'm the Program Executive Officer for Armaments and Ammunition. What a truly monumental and exciting day for the United States Army. As Colonel Medora and General Burris have mentioned, the next generation squad weapon and ammunition will provide an immense increase in capability for the close combat force. As the JPO ANA, I'm honored to be assigned with providing world-class ammunition for the new 6.8 millimeter caliber for the next generation squad weapons for the decades to come. The next generation squad weapon will be fielded with a full suite of 6.8 ammunition to support both combat and training. The key combat cartridge for the system leverages the technology successfully demonstrated in various small caliber improvements. It builds upon the enhanced performance round, the EPR, in our current 5.56 inventory and enhancements in other calibers to address a broad spectrum of targets. Soldier feedback has been very positive on the 5.56 EPR, again the extended enhanced performance round, and the cartridge since its introduction since 2010. However, the current 5.56 cartridge has been maxed out from the performance perspective. The new weapon, with its increased operating pressure and size, allows the Army to significantly increase the performance capability of the ammunition. These advances allow soldiers at the squad level to deliver improved target defeat at higher energies to advance threats at extended ranges. Over the next couple of years, additional ammunition technologies, such as reduced range ammunition, will be fielded to allow further flexibilities for soldiers to train with existing infrastructures. One key challenge my office and the Army faces is equipping the warfighter force with a new caliber of ammunition. The Army has not introduced a new caliber for about 65 years, as was said earlier. Doing so required extensive coordination with the stakeholders across the enterprise to develop combat and training requirements, production capability, as well as budgeting for procurement. Current ammunition is such that the availability is almost an afterthought. You go to the supply point, you pick up your ammunition, and you go out to the range and you fire your 5.62. This is because the Army has spent decades refining its process to ensure a sufficient inventory of 5.56 ammunition is available and the industry base is present to continue replenishing on a consistent basis. Now consider preparing a new weapon fielding starting with absolute zero inventory and the industrial base being established. It's daunting. It's daunting indeed. My team has coordinated with PEO Soldier and PEO Lethality CFT to lay out a course to support readiness through the building of the industrial base at both Sig Sauer and the Lake City Army Ammunition Plant. The Lake City Army Ammunition Plant has already been providing projectiles for Sig Sauer and the other competitors during the prototyping phase, and we'll continue to provide all the projectiles as we move forward. We're going to build an interim capability for a full cartridge by modifying some of the existing equipment and floor space while a new building is being constructed to provide the necessary and enduring capability. The timing of the interim and enduring capabilities coupled with the Sig Sauers ramping up their capabilities to provide the next generation squad weapon ammunition requirements to build combat and training inventories while supporting ongoing training. We are prepared to support the Army by delivering the family of 6.8 next generation squad weapon ammunition for combat and training. This will equip the close combat forces, enabling it to be ready through live fire training and to address any threat it may encounter on the battlefield. This is truly an exciting day. The real work of the ammunition community and the next generation squad weapon program goes into overdrive starting right now. So thank you very much. I look forward to your questions.
Good morning. During this program and over the past several years, PO soldiers collaborated and worked closely with the soldier lethality cross-functional team, as well as the Joint Program Executive Office for Armaments and Ammunition. As an integrated team, we conducted numerous testing events that included over 1,000 soldiers and resulted in over 20,000 hours of soldier feedback on the prototype systems. During the competition, we took the user's requirements provided to us from the soldier lethality cross-functional team, provided those requirements to each of the next generation squad weapon competitors, and allowed our industry partners to make system design trades in order to best address our requirements. We also allowed industry to innovate and iterate throughout the process so each company could provide the best, most capable systems possible. The Army has been fully transparent throughout testing, and we provided all of the collected test data back to each company so each of them could continue to improve their designs. This competition has worked as we intended. During the development and testing phase, industry provided the Army with systems that have significantly more capability than the M249 and M4 that they will replace in the close combat force. We have also leveraged the middle tier of acquisition authorities in order to accelerate system development, production, and fielding timelines, so we can get the next generation squad weapon into the hands of our soldiers as quickly as possible. After all was said and done and the selection process was complete, the Sig Sauer rifle and automatic rifle solutions with their integrated ammunition were determined to be the best value to the government. We would like to thank each of the competitors for their next generation squad weapon submissions and for participating in the next generation squad weapons competition. This strong competition ensured that we will continue to field the best possible small arms capabilities to our warfighters. Thank you for attending. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, panel, for those opening comments. We'll begin with questions in the room. We'll start with Todd South from Army Times. And as you ask the question, would you state your name and affiliation for recording? Todd, so
Todd South, Military Times, Army Times. Just two kind of overview questions for whoever is the most appropriate to answer. You mentioned you 6 Sauer winning the competition. Could you clarify or provide more details as to why 6 Sauer specifically won over its competitor, and secondarily, more of a fuller timeline on first unit equipped and ammunition delivery?
Sir, if it's okay, I'll address the selection process. So as many of you are probably aware, we conducted, over the last 2 years, we conducted extensive testing, really in 2 phases. First phase was prototype testing, phase 1, where we did soldier touch points and the technical testing that General Burris referenced in his opening remarks. And that was really a diagnostic phase. So all that data went back to industry. And that's where they were allowed a period of time to iterate on their designs and address those shortfalls and make those trades that I mentioned in my opening remarks. Then we went into the phase 2 portion, and this was the 4 records. So we took the updated designs, the iterated designs, we put them through those same battery of tests, provided all that information back to industry, and then we went into the source selection process. And at that point, all of the factors were weighed. And in the end, like I said, Sig Sauer was determined to be the best value and ultimately won the competition.
With respect to first unit equipped, we anticipate now the OT occurring in third quarter of FY23, and then first unit equipped around fourth quarter 23. So that's what we're looking at right now.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. Sorry, Jeff Shovel, Task and Purpose. A follow-up for Brigadier General Burris. You said the first unit equipped was fourth quarter of 23. How long is it going to take to field all of the weapons and ammunition to the close combat force?
So the fielding of the weapon is based upon ammunition production. So as the vendor is able to produce ammunition and then Lake City ultimately comes on, what we don't want to do is field a capability to a unit where we don't have training ammunition or contingency ammunition if required. And so that's what drives the fielding of the weapon and so the types of units that we would field it to initially.
And Brigadier General Borup, how long is it going to take to come up with a reservoir of 6.8 millimeter ammunition adequate enough to field all of the weapons?
So thank you for the question. I think we are going to start working with Sig Sauer now that they've been identified. We already have started preparing the site for the new building. The new building will be stood up in Lake City, Army ammunition plant, and it will start producing around FY 25-26. We'll work with Sig Sauer. We're clearing some space now at the Lake City facility to start the production. But we will have those when it's time for them to field in 23 and 24. We'll have enough reserve ammunition for the units to go forward to be fielded, and there's going to be no delay in the fielding plan right now as on the ammunition side. We'll have the capability to produce the ammo as the units are fielded.
Steve Bannon, military.com. Could you talk a little bit about what is the first unit that's going to be fielded, the new weapons in FY23? How's that being selected? And can you talk a little bit about the $20 million contract? What is that actually buying? It doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, we spent 4 times that on the ACFT in the last couple of years. So
the actual unit that will be fielded first, I don't want to get out in front, that's an Army senior leader decision. And so, it's incumbent upon us to provide options along with U.S. Army Forces Command on who that first unit will be. But I appreciate the question.
we'll hear it.
And then the cut.
Hi, Ashley Roque with James. I just wanted to go back to the competition crew. Were all 3 companies still left at the final before you made the down select, or did Textron or the other company get pushed out before? And could you sort of detail what transpired?
Sure. So as we went through the competition was 3 vendors. We had Sig Sauer. We had what was originally GDOTS that novated their contract to Lone Star Future Weapons, and then the Textron. And then through the testing, what we determined was, and those were all under other transaction agreements, OTAs, during the prototyping phase. And what was determined was that Textron had not met the success criteria of their OTA and were excluded from the final competition because of that.
Are you able to detail sort of what that issue was, and sort of when was that point that they were excluded?
It was prior to the RFP submission, which went into the source selection, but I'm not at liberty to talk the details on that criteria.
Hi, John Isman with the New York Times. I was wondering if you could tell me, does this new 6.8 round penetrate level 4 plates? And also, what does introducing a new caliber like this mean for NATO standardization?
So I can't get into the specifics of what capability it provides, but it does provide greater energy against protected and non-protected targets at various ranges. And so I can't really go into the rest of that on that. So it's a much greater capability. In terms of NATO caliber, our partners, specifically some of our Five Eye partners, are aware of the program, and this is not intended to replace 7.62 or 5.56 as a NATO ammunition capability. We will continue to retain M4s and M249s and M240 Bravos outside of the close combat force. And I don't know if anybody wants to add on to that.
From the ammunition piece, just so this forum knows, we will continue to produce 5.56 and 7.62 at the current rates we're at now. That we're not slowing down that production. So we have no drawback in that capability. We're building a new 6.8 millimeter facility that will has plenty of space to house that, and some other programs we have the facility. So at Lake City, there's no reduction in production for any of those rounds.
Can you see what the production level you hope to achieve at the new facility? Like how many rounds per year?
So we just found out that Sig Sauer got it, and you see the hybrid case. So we're going to work with how we develop and set that system up. The way the contract's laid out, Sig Sauer will be they will provide the ammunition initially for like 3 to 5 years. We'll start producing the ammunition at Lake City at that point, and then at 7 to 8 years down the line, we'll take the lead, and Sig Sauer will remain our second source. Not to get too detailed on that, but we always like to have a second source in case something happens at a plant. So Sig Sauer will stay involved in this as we move forward with the hybrid ammunition. The production numbers, we're still working that with Sig Sauer as we just found out who won, and we'll be able to answer that at a later date.
Hi, Matt Seiler, ABC News. Colonel, with the competition, were these two weapon systems treated as a package, or were they competing independently? In other words, could Sig Sauer have won a contract for one and not the other?
That's a good question. We left it open such that we could make that decision during the competition. The limiting factor is the unique ammunition that is specific to the solution for the AR and the rifle for the vendor, because each of the ammunition cartridges are vastly different, right? So as we were going through, there was obviously a thought given to what that facilitization for two different cartridges would be. And then ultimately, as we evaluated, we ended up selecting it with that in mind as well, that both the AR and the rifle from Sig Sauer were the best value.
Thank you.
Hi, Ethan Sterenfeld from Inside Defense. I wanted to ask General Burra, why won't production of the 5.56 rounds fall?
It may be reduced in the out years based on our requirements, and what will happen, the 5.56, we have an agreement with the contractor that runs it. It's a government-owned, contractor-operated facility. Right now, it's being run by Olin Winchester, as you know. So as our numbers will go down, that capacity and capability will probably go to the commercial side. But the important point there is, if we ever had to ramp up for war, speed of war, as mentioned earlier, we'll still have that capability. Then the commercial production at that said plant will always focus on the government's requirements first. So the requirements will go down eventually, but we still have a big part of our force that will be using 5.56 and 7.62 as we move in the future, even as we move past the fielding of the weapon to all the units for the close combat fight.
And then just as a follow-up, right? As a follow-up, will soldiers then continue to use the M4 in exercises with NATO allies, or will they bring their own logistics for ammo?
So I think that depends on what type of unit you're talking about, right? The close combat force, which is, 11 Bravo infantrymen, it's 19 Delta Cavalry Scouts, it's 12 Bravo combat engineers, 68 Whiskey medics, and then 13 Foxtrot Ford observers that are actually the close combat force. As they get fielded 6A, they would have their 6A weapons with them, obviously, as their primary weapon system. Other folks in those organizations will continue to bring, use the current M4 and the M249s and the M240s moving forward. If that, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mike Lynn with the Washington Times. Are the other services going to be adopting these rifles as well? And what's their take on them? I'm particularly interested in what the Marines think about it.
So right now, this is an Army program, as I mentioned earlier, sir. We had Marines that were involved in all of the soldier touch points, providing feedback. So I guess I can't answer the question whether the other services will be interested in that or not. I don't know, Scott, if you've got anything on it.
No, they have expressed interest, but I think the Army's taking the lead on this, and whether they decide to adopt it or not is really on the service. But to General Burris's point, they were actively involved in all of our soldier touch points and testing during the prototype phase. So we have gotten their feedback, and they have expressed interest.
Okay, so you're not choosing the weapons for everybody in the Department of Defense. It's just strictly, at this point, an Army program.
This is strictly for the close combat force in the Army, sir.
Okay, at this point, we'll take questions from the phone lines. We have Caitlin Kinney from Defense One. Go ahead with your question.
How many rifles, auto weapons, and the ammo is in that first order for the 20 million? And then how many years do you expect it will take to complete?
So thank you for the question. It's Colonel Scott Medor. The the first order, that $20.4 million, is really to start the process of developing the production line at Sig Sauer. So as we ramp up, so it's very small quantity, I think, if I remember correctly, in the range of about 25 rifles, about 15 ARs, a large quantity of ammo, because like General Burris and General Borup mentioned, that's really a limiting factor in our the strategy. So, like I said, it's a very small quantity of weapons just to start establishing the production line and proving that production line out, and then it'll ramp up over time.
As far as the ammo goes, we will surpass that. We'll work with Sig Sauer now that we know who it is. We'll make sure they have the capability of their plant. We're already pre-built a lot of the projectiles. We're going to send them to them now, and they'll start building the ammunition, so it'll build up our war reserves and fielding requirements. And we're focusing on the general purpose rounds as we go forward. And the first four rounds we're really getting out in FY23 will be the general purpose, the blank, the drill dummy inert, and then the high pressure. That's really a test cartridge, so we can test some of the pressures in the weapon system as we go forward. Because we'll refine it now that we know who the winning contractor is. Whereas there was a lot of touch points you could have on the weapons until we were down selected the ammunition. Now we'll work with that vendor, and we'll actually get ahead of the game until the weapons are started being produced, and we'll start building the war stock and reserves up front.
Next from the phone line, we'll have Rose Thayer, Stars and Stripes.
Follow up, please. Thanks. Sorry. For the M4s, for the non-combat troops, I mean, is that eventually going to be phased out as the production line ramps up?
So right now, the Army senior leaders have only decided to field these two weapon systems to the close combat force. Again, those military occupational specialties I mentioned a few minutes ago, which, historically over time have sustained 80% of the casualties in combat. And so that's the focus of these two weapon systems for the foreseeable future until a decision is made by the Army senior leaders. The other forces will continue to use the M4 and the M249.
Okay, Rose, your question?
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering if you could sort of talk about, what excites you about what the new weapon does that the old one didn't, and then as the follow-up, what are you hearing from soldiers as they were testing these that they really like about it?
So I'll speak first, I guess, sir. So the capability increase that these weapons provide over the M4 and the M249 is what's really exciting. It's a significant change. The way it fires, the way when you apply the fire control, which was previously awarded back in January, when you apply that to these weapon systems, it improves or increases the probability of hit for the individual soldier, reduces aim error, and it's a game changer. So that's really what excites me about these two systems as we saw them go through testing.
Yeah, hey, this is Larry Burris. If I could add on to that, I mean, in addition to the accuracy provided by the next generation fire control system, what you also have is much greater energy at the target, whether it's protected or unprotected, at various ranges, and so there's much greater energy on the target.
And from the ammunition side, it's exciting for us because, as I said in my opening comments, the 5.56 we've had great success with enhanced performance round, but we've kind of maxed out that capability in the 5.56. So this will give us, with the overpressures, we'll be able to adjust the ammo and give more opportunities as we build ammo projectiles out in the future. So it gives us more capability to enhance the weapon in the future where we had kind of maxed out on a 5.56. So from the ammunition perspective, it's very exciting.
This is Larry Burris again. If I could talk about soldier feedback, I mean, soldier feedback was provided to, based upon each weapon prototype that was provided by the vendors. And so as a soldier received a weapon from a vendor, they would provide feedback on that particular weapon system. It was not compared against other weapon systems. It was here's a rifle from a vendor. Let's go shoot it, provide feedback, and that's what was provided back to the PEO and then to the vendors on the individual weapon systems. And that's how the soldier feedback was done. And so It wasn't a comparison. It wasn't a comparison from one vendor to another or an M4 to another weapon system. It was, here's a rifle, go shoot it.
Okay, the next question will come from Defense Daily, Matt Maynard.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering, what is the expected ceiling value for the 10-year contract with Sig Sauer? And then is the overall acquisition objective still around 250,000 weapons and 150 million rounds of ammunition? And then I have a separate quick follow-up. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question. Can you say that again, please?
Yes, just what is the expected ceiling value for this 10-year deal with Sig Sauer? Thank you.
So the ceiling value on this contract is 4.7 billion. Now there are 10 discrete ordering periods, annual ordering periods, and I'll make a correction, and I think General Burris can give you the actual AAO number, but the number that's in the contract of up to 250,000 is what we anticipate we can procure within that. That is not the AAO. That allows for additional customers, whether that's other services like the Marines, if they choose to adopt this system, but it is not what the AAO is.
Yeah, the AAO is based upon the numbers of the close combat force, which is roughly 120,000, right? So the 5 military occupational specialties I mentioned previously, as well as Army Special Operations Forces, so it's roughly 120,000.
And the ammunition window you gave was for additional customers also, so we are going to be able to field that ammunition for that package based on the current orders that we've got projected. And we'll have the capability to flex out in the out years, as was said earlier. Once we reach all of the storage requirements, go to war storage, if you will, training requirements, we can slow down that production and perhaps open it up to commercial vendors like we do with the other calibers. But that will be way down the road, 29 and beyond, till we get to that level.
Great, thank you. And if I could just ask a quick follow-up, can you detail the tail end of the 27-month testing and evaluation process? When did that officially wrap up? When were kind of the last soldier touch points that informed the kind of final decision making that went into this award? Thank you.
Yes, so that testing wrapped up in the August of 21, early September of 21 timeframe, and then that's the point where we went into the source selection process, receipt of proposals, and then evaluation of those proposals. So the testing was in the August, early September timeframe of last year.
We have one more question on the phone line, then I'll circle back to the room. So, Warzone, Dan Persons.
Can you talk a little bit about the performance of SIG's hybrid round versus some of the other designs that were in the competition, mainly that you stuck with a brass metal casing versus polymer, and what you found when you were...
As far as the competition goes for the ammunition, the requirement was to be less than the 7.62, which it was, and that was the big deciding factor, was the weight. So that's why you have a split design to keep it under the weight, and we look forward to working with SIG as we go 6 hours. We go forward to build that capability out at our plant, at our Army ammunition plant in Lake City, as I said earlier. So it's exciting time on the ammunition side.
Yeah, thanks, sir. If I could add on to that too. So while you can't really make a comparison of one cartridge projectile integrated solution from one vendor to another, I would say as we went through evaluations, they were evaluated as a total system. So rifle with integrated unique cartridge to those systems, and automatic rifle with the same integrated cartridge. So as far as the performance of one cartridge projectile solution to another, it's a hard comparison to make because it was evaluated as a total system. And we gave industry that flexibility that, in the beginning we said, here is the 6.8 projectile, design me a system, that's cartridge, that's integrated cartridge, that's an automatic rifle and a rifle, give us that solution, and here's your requirements that you can trade across. So
Okay, we'll go back to the room. Ashley?
I wanted to follow up. So you ended testing in September. Could you sort of, I guess a two-part question, walk us through what took so long to make the final down select? And then also, since you've done this like 18 soldier touch points and so much test and evaluation before, sort of what is the timetable between now and the end of FY23 when you reach that first unit equipped?
Yep, thank you. Like I said, we ended testing in the August-September timeframe. There's obviously, each of the vendors are required to submit a proposal, right, with all their data that we provided to them, as well as additional information, costs, et cetera. And then we had to go into there was a team that went through the standard source selection procedures, right? We also leveraged a unique, not unique, it's a statutory authority that allows us to go from a prototyping OTA into a production vehicle, whether that's a FAR-based, Federal Acquisition Regulation-based contract or another transaction authority. So there's some additional time in that approval process to make that transition that took the time. So it's still in total, again, 27 months plus a few months on the end to get to the actual award. It's still lightning speed in comparison to other programs, and especially when you consider that we're making such a significant change in caliber, first time in 65 years, to get to that in 27 months of testing and with as much soldier touch time and technical testing is pretty significant.
Until the down select, we didn't work with any of the vendors on the ammunition. So the exciting point for us is now we can work with Sig Sauer. We can refine some of the pressures in the weapon that will enhance the ammunition as we move forward. Just like with the program office, now that the selection's been made, we can work closer with that said contractor, the winning contractor, Sig Sauer, and we can continue to refine the ammunition and the weapons as we move forward. That's what's going to happen in that time frame as we get near the first unit equipped.
Okay. Next will be Steve.
So just to make sure I'm tracking this correctly, so the end of next year, the Army needs to start fielding and creating the ammunition before the weapons get to the units. At that point, the weapons will start getting to the infantry and the CAF scouts and stuff like that. So we'll be spending the next decade or so sort of issuing that out to active duty and National Guard units. And then there's no real plan to send them to like 42 Alphas or non-combat arms.
I'll start on the ammo piece since that's what you started with, and just to restate it correctly. So Sig Sauer, by the contract, they will be the initial producer of the ammunition. So they're producing the ammunition now, just like all the vendors did for all the testing. We provided the projectiles. So they will have the capability to start producing the ammo for the training and the war reserves now. They'll do that and we will, now that we can work with them, we'll start building that capability, interim capability at Lake City. The new plant will open in 2026, and we'll start taking the lead away from our second source around that time frame. But the ammunition is being built as we sit here now. We sent additional millions of projectiles to whoever the winning vendor was, so now they can increase and produce more general purpose ammunition, but they're doing it right now. And I think the way you said it, we were waiting for Lake City, we're not waiting. They're the initial source, and we will join them about the 25 time frame at the facility, but we're going to join them soon thereafter.
But you want that ammo stockpile first before the weapons?
You do have to have the ammo. You have to have enough to field the weapon, and you have to have enough for the unit to go to war. And I'm getting out of my lane a little bit, so I'll turn it over to General Burris, and he'll give you the details.
Yeah, just you touched on something that I failed to mention, that the fielding plan, the general fielding plan, is designed to field all different types of brigade combat teams in the Army, both Compo 1 and Compo 2. This is not something that's going to be fielded to the active force first and then fielded to Compo 2 separately. But it won't go to the 42 Alphas and folks like that. They'll continue, like, for example, the company supply sergeant will continue to carry an M4 or another weapon, not the next gen weapon. Does that make?
Yeah.
Okay.
Todd. Hey, Todd, Army Times. Just a two-parter to save time. Could you talk a little bit about the projectile selection? I know initially after the SAC study, it was intermediate, it was 6mm, but not exactly 6.8 initially. That came a little later. So first part of the question. Second part, the fire control, that was selected, I believe, in January. Was any of the testing or evaluation done with the fire control or options thereof with these prototypes, or is that coming later? And when will the fire control get with the weapon? So ammo, then fire.
I'll start with the ammo, but you're going to hear him finish it from the PM office. So we did look at several types of ammunition first. The SAC study narrowed it down to the caliber we went with, 6.8. And then we provided the projectile, and it was all about energy on target and the longer ranges. And with that, I'll turn it over to the PM office that made the selections that we went through.
Yeah, so as on the fire control side, the fire control followed a very similar path as the weapons. We did a lot of the testing on M4 and one of the and 249, and one of the great things about the fire control is the ballistic calculator that's in the fire control can be you can put it on any weapon system, right? Because the ammunition calculation for drop and other atmospherics is already there. So we did that fire control very similar. We didn't follow the two-part selection process, but there was soldiers in the loop, lots of soldier feedback, a lot of technical testing. And we did close up, because at the same time, the weapons were going through their prototype testing. So it was a simultaneous testing process. They did come together during a limited user evaluation, and I forget the time frame on it, but we did do some evaluation with it on there. But they will be produced and fielded, or more importantly, fielded together as a total system, fire control, rifle, AR, and appropriate ammunition for it.
Question about terminology. With things like SAW as a 5.56 weapon, that was considered a light machine gun. M249 was a medium machine gun. What are you going to call this? And I was wondering also about the final designations that these weapons will have and what the close combat force buys for each is.
So the automatic rifle is a light machine gun designed to replace the M249 or the SAW within the close combat force.
So it would be an LMG?
Yeah, light machine gun. We consider the M240 to be a medium machine gun type of capability in the platoon. So does that clear it up?
Right. I mean, M240, sorry if I misspoke, M240 is a medium machine gun. I was wondering
Correct.
if this is, so the 6.8 is considered light?
It is. It's a replacement for the M249 with the 5.56.
And what are the final designations and buys of each for the CCF?
Are you referring to no?
Yeah.
So yeah, they have an XM nomenclature right now, just because we haven't gotten a type classification yet. When we do that, and that will be after once we're into fielding, they'll make that transition. But it will, when we make that transition, a nomenclature changes. It will go to M250 and M5, and then the M157 for the fire control.
And what are the buys of each again? Sorry for the close combat force projected. The projected buys of each weapon for the close combat force?
So the close combat force is a total AR and rifle of about 121,000 systems. I believe it's in the 105 rifles,
Yeah.
and in the about 15 or so.
Yeah, it's 107 in the rifle and approximately 13 in the automatic rifle right now.
Thousands.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I was hoping to ask about common fire control. Have there been any Army studies or projections on whether that will lead to different ammunition consumption than with earlier weapons?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So I don't think there's been an exact study done on that, sir, but I think we can make the assumption that soldiers that have greater capability, I mean, we can make the best weapon and the best fire control system, but if we don't train ourselves and our soldiers how to shoot, the soldier is the variable here that really, we all shoot differently, and it's a training issue. But the fire control takes some of that out, so that an average shooter may require less rounds on target to defeat a threat.
Does that influence like how much ammo you're trying to make, or is that?
It has not.
It does not.
We will have the initial buys, and I think to your point, as that's the exciting thing I talked about in my open comments. As we learn from the new system, if it takes a soldier less rounds to engage a target, then we can adjust it, but we did not adjust it going in to answer your question.
Thank you. Please, Jeff Schogel with Task and Purpose again. Please let me know if I get anything wrong. Please throw the red flags. It sounds like the $20 million contract is for a total of 40 weapons. So should I say in the fourth quarter of 23, the 1st Army unit will get a total of 40 weapons? No. Go ahead. Please correct me.
Okay, sure. So the 40 or so weapons, give or take a couple, are there so that we can start to ramp up or establish and prove out the production lines at Sig Sauer. So as you know, as you produce more quantities, quality goes up. So we need to test it out early and get those to a consistent quality level, right?
And the same thing for ammo. As we're going to facilitize Sig Sauer with some of that funding, and we're going to facilitize an interim facility at Lake City while we build the new facility. So it's that cost is all in those initial dollar amounts you see in the P forms.
And my last question for General Burris, you had said the total buy is for 107,000 rifles and 13,000 light machine guns. By when? When is the...
That would be to field the entire close combat force.
By when?
But, well, I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of other factors that go into that, and budget and things like that aren't my decision.
Could I range it like 10 years?
I don't remember off the top of my head how far out the fielding plan went, so I don't want to give you a bad number.
The same thing with ammo. We're locked in this current POM cycle, which is about 5 years. Those are future decisions we go out and we'll adjust accordingly as we get the funding in the out years.
Are there any additional questions in the room? We have time for 2 more questions. We'll go with Todd.
Army Times. You mentioned training earlier in your comments. I'm curious if you could just give a broad view of the coordination with, say, with TRADOC and others in preparation for the arrival of this gear. We're talking about ranges, different maybe TTP issues. Can you talk about that also?
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of ranges, understanding the energy with this weapon, that's why they've produced the reduced range weapon ammunition, so that we don't have to change our current qualification ranges for this weapon system. So we will continue to use our current ranges on our installations. In terms of training, at Fort Benning, the Maneuver Center of Excellence, our doctrine folks and training folks are moving forward with, the doctrine that will be associated with how do we train with this weapon. I anticipate it'll follow a very similar strategy as we do with M4 qualification, for example, with using the .40, or if you're familiar with that, and the 6 tables. I anticipate a strategy just like that. I mean, that's the common weapons training strategy across the Army, and I think it'll probably be something very similar to that. Does that answer your question?
Just a side note, as AMU, I know they were involved with some of the caliber discussions years ago. Are they involved in some of the implementation or kind of train the trainer type things? Or?
So AMU was involved in the soldier touch points throughout the process. They had their NCOs, non-commissioned officers, who were involved in testing the weapons, providing feedback, as well as the other folks that we mentioned previously.
Okay.
Can we get a breakdown of all of like the max effective ranges and weights and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I don't think we can talk. I can't talk that in this forum. What I will say is, it provides greater energy at target, again, close in and far out than our current systems do.
What about weight? I mean, would we say weight as compared to the M4 and the missile?
So if you want me to take that. Yeah, so the weights are, I'll give a comparison to the M4 and the 249 in general, weight difference. So the rifle, the next gen squad weapon rifle, is about 2 pounds over the M4. Now the automatic rifle is actually 4 pounds less than the current M249 squad automatic weapon.
Definitely loaded or empty?
No, that's empty.
Is there ammo difference in weight?
So the requirement again was it has to be lighter than 7.62, and all 3 of them were lighter than 7.62 as it went to the competition. And as Colonel Medora said earlier, that ammunition piece was part of the entire system. But that was the requirement, and they all met it.
Okay, Ashley, I'll give you the last question before we wrap up.
Need to go through IoT testing before first unit equipped, and then also sort of how testing and integration with the fire control and IVAS, if that's moving forward.
Yeah, so the IoT&E, yes, we have an IoT&E scheduled third quarter, I believe it's third quarter of FY '23. When that concludes, we'll go into the first unit equipped. There's some decision points that we've got to make, obviously, before that, based on the results. The IVAS and how they're two separate programs, but that doesn't mean that we're not doing work to make sure that the two are compatible. And so my